We all know about the dangers of get rich quick schemes. They're supposedly the best way to gain wealth in a fast manner. One of the most notorious get rich quick schemes, though, is sports gambling and gambling in general. Well, sports gambling and gambling in general should not be legalized. According to The Economist, a renowned website for economic analysis tells us that the Supreme Court recently reversed a federal ruling on a federal prohibition of gambling back in 2018. And since then, California has had an annual revenue of around $3 billion from specifically the sports gambling business. But why does this matter? This matters because gambling and sports betting can be a massive industry in the United States. And whenever you have massive industries, it can have serious economic, social, and political impacts. Sports gambling and gambling in general should not be legalized for three main reasons. First, because of college athletics. Second, because of addiction. And finally, because of mental health. First, let's talk about college athletics. Specifically, the history of sports betting in college athletics. According to Dave Wilson, an attorney who published an article in the University of Massachusetts Law Review, he explains that back in 1978, in Boston College basketball, there was actually a whole scandal about how the Boston College players had teamed up with the New York Mafia in order to throw games and fix games, which means that they were going to lose them on purpose in order to have financial reimbursement from the Mafia. And even more recently, a member of the Boston College football team who was actually playing on the football team back in 1996 said very recently that they're going, quote unquote, they're going to create a bigger pool for more kids and more money to get invested. And what he meant by this quote was that more money invested in sports gambling, specifically in college athletics, for them to be able to throw and fix games. This is really harmful because imagine your favorite football team, like Texas A&M football, losing every single year. Yet all the players are driving Bugattis because they're getting paid off by the mob to lose games. The second problem that can arise with college athletics is the current day problems. Once again, according to Dave Wilson, the NCAA recently did a study and they found that more than 22,000 male athletes were already breaking the gambling policy in college athletics. This is very problematic because there's a history of gambling in college sports, and that translates into a present day where gambling is still a problem. So if sports gambling and betting was legalized right now in the US and every state accepted that, this would cause massive implications for college athletics. And that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the colleges, it's not good for the academics at the school, and it's not good for the students to have to deal with the reputation of the football team that's been gambling on themselves and fixing games. Second, let's talk about addiction and the problem with addiction when it comes to sports betting. First off, let's talk about how sports betting and gambling targets youth. According to Cal Thomas, a renowned author and syndicated columnist, the youth are about 2 to 3 times more likely to develop a gambling problem, and approximately 6% of college students in America already have a gambling problem. This is really important because if gambling was to be legalized in every single state after this 2018 ruling, this means that people like me, you, and all of the people that we're friends with could potentially suffer from gambling addiction. And now, I like to put the occasional sports bet down every now and then on my favorite team. But imagine if one of us, me or you, was gambling every single day, large amounts of money, to the point where we gambled away all of our tuition money and could no longer go to college. This is very problematic because there is already a huge student debt problem in America and in the world right now when it comes to secondary education. Addiction is a really big problem everywhere, and we as a society should be trying to fight addiction at every step of the way. And by allowing sports gambling and betting in general to be legalized, that means that then addiction would be running rampant in the youth and would force people to grow up with this addiction. Third, and finally, let's talk about the mental health problem and the mental health aspect of gambling, specifically depression. According to Cal Thomas, once again, the National Council on Problem Gambling explains that 15% of Americans gamble at least once a week, and approximately 76% of problem gamblers are likely to have a major depressive order. So let's break down the math for you for just 1 second. 76% of 15% means that 11.4% of Americans are problem gamblers. By legalizing gambling in every single state is only going to dramatize this issue. And especially when you look at another sub-issue under a mental health disorder, the fact that we are already in a mental health epidemic. This is really important because, as the London Evening Standard will explain to us, the London Evening Standard is a magazine based in London and a newspaper that publishes daily articles. That 1 in 6 children and 1 in 6 children aged 5 to 16 now identify as having a probable mental disorder. And it's no secret that mental disorders are becoming more and more prevalent as they're starting to be destigmatized. So depression in relation has a direct correlation to problem gambling, which 11.4% of Americans already have, and it's not even legalized in every state. So depression and gambling and the correlation between the two indicates that there should absolutely not be federally or state legalized gambling in any way, shape, or form. All in all, gambling and sports betting should not be legalized for 3 key reasons. First, because of college athletics. Second, because of addiction. And finally, because of depression and the correlation between the two. Stand with me and don't legalize sports betting and gambling.